Last week's live episode, we talked a little bit about the recent convictions of Tamara Lich and Chris Barber in relation to their role as leaders of the Freedom Convoy. Didn't go into it in great detail because we don't have the actual decision yet, but people did bring up in the chat and in comments afterwards that this is a political persecution. And thought I'd talk about that a little bit more because I think even if one is actually factually guilty based on the law, especially with broadly worded laws like mischief, it could still be a political situation based on how the government prioritizes who they prosecute and who they don't prosecute. So we'll take a look at that today on Don't Talk TV. Hello, my name is Nicholas Wansbutter. I'm a lawyer in Stratford, Ontario, Canada, and welcome to Don't Talk TV. So I mentioned in the preamble that part of this conversation started with what came up in the live episode, but what also really gave me the incentive to talk about this topic is I had the occasion to rewatch The Sound of Freedom with some of my older children and my wife this past weekend. I highly recommend that if you haven't seen it, you see that movie. You can take a look at episode 162, where I reviewed that film. I mean, very short version is that it's a film about the realities of modern day slavery in the form of human trafficking. And the lengths that an individual named Tim Ballard went to try to fight this, but he had to go outside the system. It's a true story. He had to go outside the system to beat it. And this persistently continues to be a multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar trade with millions of people in slavery. As the movie points out at the end, there's more people enslaved today than back when slavery was legal. Why is this? Governments would say, well, we lack the resources to deal with this problem. We lack the resources. It's just too big of a problem. We don't have enough officers. We need more money for more officers or what have you. Of course, the legacy media also said that film exaggerated the issue. But of course, they backed that up with no proof. Whereas Mr. Ballard, you can Google him, you can see his organization. They can back it up with proof and statistics. And I mean, this is an ongoing problem. And I mean, the fact that the legacy media attacked that film tells you all you need to know about the legacy media. But it goes into what I'm going to be talking about, how there's priorities for some things. They can find the money and the resources for some things, but not others. And it seems that human trafficking is not one of them. When's the last time you heard about a big human trafficking bust in Canada? I mean, it does happen here and there, but they're certainly not given the resources that they need. Another thing that doesn't get the resources that it needs is, and that the police seem unable to solve, unable to do anything about. Well, I'll just share my screen here. We've got a National Post article. We're now up to 592 places of worship that have been burned in 12 years, an increasing number of arsons across Canada since 2010, peaking in 2021. And we all know about 2021. I've covered that on Don't Talk TV in previous episodes. The vast majority of these places of worship that have been burnt down are Christian. We've got a paywall in this National Post, so we're not going to go delve into it more, but certainly have no reason to doubt their numbers, and they coincide with numbers from other media sources that we've looked at on previous occasions. And you can look up episodes. We'll put the links in the show description below to episodes where I've talked about this previously. But if you've heard of an arrest being made on even one of these arsons, please put it in the comment box. I haven't been able to find any evidence that even one person has been convicted. So this is another thing that our government just doesn't seem to have the resources to handle. Another thing that I think is very nefarious, especially in a government that talks so much about how much they support Indigenous people. The fact that we've got these long-term drinking advisories. I mean, I'm looking right at the government website here, so no one can say that I'm making this up, because why would the government make this up? But they're pointing out that there's still 147 long-term water advisories, so they've been lifted since 2015, but there's still 35 in effect in 33 communities. There shouldn't be a single community in Canada that has a drinking water advisory in it, yet here we are. There's still 35 water drinking advisories going on, even though since over the last 10 years a number have been lifted. That's still, I mean, 147, that's over 10 years, it's about 15 per year. So they're not even on track to get rid of these 35 in the next year. And again, I'm sure the answer would be lack of resources. We don't have the money, we don't have the resources to make this happen. But this is where the politics come in, because lo and behold, the government can find resources for certain things that they do want to deal with. So I've talked about this case a number of times. Again, more information on this in the show description. I talked about this last week, about this individual was just convicted last week of terrorism charges. But so, I mean, let's put this in perspective, right? This is an individual charged with making some videos for a neo-Nazi group that doesn't even exist anymore. And they seem to be legitimate neo-Nazis from what I read of them. Not, where if you have any kind of political position that's not insane, they call you a Nazi. I mean, no, I'm not talking about that type of Nazi. I'm talking about like actual Nazis. Adam Waffen seems to be actual Nazis, so can probably agree that's not a good thing. But compared to human trafficking, compared to churches being burnt on our own soil, I mean, I don't think Adam Waffen actually committed any crimes in Canada. This is in other places. And I mean, we're talking about making a video for people, even awful people. We're talking about making a video. They spent all kinds of money. They had to search the ends of the earth to find this person because he posted behind VPNs. He didn't use his real name. They had to really dig to find this individual. So again, I mean, this is where the politics come in. The politics are telling us that someone who makes Nazis are such an overriding concern for our government that they're going to go to the ends of the earth to find someone who made videos for them. This is much more important than clean drinking water or churches being burnt down or human trafficking. So even though, I'll have to review the decision, but let's assume that it was completely legitimate decision. He actually committed the crime that he was convicted of. It's still political even if you committed the crime, but that those resources are being directed towards that. And then, of course, I mean, I talked about this in the preamble. We talk about the conviction and the prosecution of Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. And that case has been described as one of the longest prosecutions, one of the biggest cases in Canadian history of how much court time and resources it took up. Massive amounts of resources they're willing to pour into that. Again, that's where the politics come in. As I said in the live, by the definition under the Criminal Code of mischief, every single protest ever is a mischief. I mean, that's what a protest is it interferes with the enjoyment of property. I mean, if it didn't, no one would care. No one would pay attention. It wouldn't be a protest. So the political aspect comes in. This is something they're prioritizing. They're willing to funnel that kind of resources to deal with people who protested against lockdowns. That's much higher priority for the government than churches burning clean drinking water or human trafficking. And then when it comes to it comes to clean drinking water, they can't solve the clean drinking water situation for Canadians. Indigenous people, they are Canadians. But they've got $5 million of Canadian taxpayer money for a program called Fostering Resilience in Iraq Through Sustainable Water Management and Climate Smart Agriculture. So they're going to give $5 million to Iraqis for some kind of sustainable water management. I mean, this is climate change stuff, right? So this is more important to our government than clean drinking water for our own citizens, and to the tune of 5 million. Now, I've got a couple other here that I'll show, and as always, we've got the links in the show description. Now, some of these are a bit smaller, right? I mean, this one, $48,000. People might say, oh, for Tonga, people might be saying, oh, you're straining at gnats here, ones, but who cares about 48,000? Well, how many people make 48,000 a year? How much Canadian? Why is Canadian tax money going to anyone who's not a Canadian, while there's still Canadians who don't have clean drinking water? I mean, we've got a couple others here, not to belabor the point, but just to show, like, this is not just a one-off that I've found here, and you can find more if you look under this grants and contributions. We've got here 30,000 for addressing rural drinking water quality in Samoa, and we'll put one more up here. This one is for 41,000 almost, for creating community-led waste for water desalination business to provide clean drinking water in coastal villages in Bali. Now, and again, I'm all for helping people, but look, our government is in massive deficit, and they're telling us we don't have the resources to help Canadian citizens. We haven't even talked about homelessness, the opioid epidemic, all kinds of issues we can think of that 5 million could help with that. It's death by 1,000 cuts with 40,000 here, 45,000 there, 30,000 there. You add all these programs up of money we're giving to other countries. It seems like our government has more care and concern for other countries than for our own citizens. So again, this is all politics, in my view. Politics is what we prioritize, not necessarily saying this is a crime or that's not a crime, but prioritizing what are the resources going to be put into. So in that respect, although I haven't been able to read the decision, so I'm not saying it's completely political in terms of that it was a complete wrongful conviction and that Ms. Lich and Mr. Barber shouldn't have been convicted. I don't know, because I haven't read the decision, but just the mere fact that they're prosecuted is political. And then and to say nothing of other protests that were violent, or were statues being torn down with all the orange shirt protests. We talked about that. Why is that not a crime? But this is. So there's that prioritization. Both are, by the letter of the law, potentially crimes, but one is investigated, the other isn't. And then just recently, I don't have video of this. Maybe I'll get some, because but Mr. McKenzie, Jeremy McKenzie, also known as the Raging Dissident, a lot of people might know of him. He recently just did a photo shoot. I mentioned that with some of his people. They were called out by some Liberal MP. Big fur over them just standing in a park with some flags, and then there was a counter protest for last weekend, I think. Mr. McKenzie attended, just saying, hey, you're protesting me, let's talk. Well, instead of talking, they assaulted him. They threatened him. He was assaulted by numerous people. Fortunately for him, these are not strong people, so he wasn't injured. Police were there, not a single charge laid. So we can see the politics and what the priorities are of our government, and what they want us to do and what they want us to not to do, what they like, what they don't like. So these are things well worth being aware of, being concerned about, and trying to work towards some changes. And we're in the midst of an election, so how you vote may play a role in some of those changes. And as I alluded to last week, I don't think that the Team Red or Team Blue or Team Orange are going to change any of what I'm talking about here. But you should do that research yourself. Of course, I'm not going to tell anyone how to vote. What I am going to tell you is that this video is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, call a lawyer. You can call me if you want me to be that lawyer. My contact information is listed below there. Show topics. We're always interested to hear what. Or I put up the wrong banner there. We're interested to hear what you would like to hear us talk about, and I enjoy engaging with the comments section, which is, I think, what I did in today's episode. So please send a question or comment to the email address listed below, or you can leave a comment in the comments section. And If you found this vid at all interesting, helpful, or informative, please consider sharing, liking, sharing, following us, social media. As I've said many times, I think we can beat the algorithm, but we need those likes and those subscriptions to do that. So please spread the word and get your friends to watch if you like what we're talking about here.